Well, good morning. I would like to call to order the Joint Subcommittee on Human Services. Secretary, please call the roll.
Senators Canizaro, Dondero Loop, Stone, Titus, Wen, Assembly Members Brown May, Dickman, Hafen, Hibbets, Howdigi, Monroe Moreno, Yeager, and Chair Mosca.
I am here, and please mark all present now. Thank you. I would like to remind everyone to please silence their cell phones and electronic devices, and remind you that public comment will be available at the end of the meeting after the budget presentations. We are very busy today with 9 different items. We want the public to know we are going to try our best to get through the whole budget today, but of course, get all of the comprehensive information that we need, but if for some reason we don't get through them all, we do have a potential rollover day that we are going to try our best. And so with that, I will invite our presenters to the table. Please remember to state your name for the record and restate every time that you are speaking. You may go directly to the member today, and we are going to stop after every budget. And you may begin when you're ready.
Madam Chairman, members, for the record, Chris Sewell, Director of the Department of Employment Training and Rehabilitation. We have a PowerPoint presentation, and it's actually a lot shorter than our normal PowerPoint. So we're going just with the budget numbers. And again, some housekeeping. We do have page numbers at the top of each slide that you can refer to for if you have questions. One of the things I want to sort of mention, I'm going to ask my Dieter family just to raise their hands that are sitting in the audience so you know who they are. I'm not going to introduce them, but as you see, the audience is full of them. And that's my team. And they're the ones that put the budgets together. They're the ones that do the day in and day out work. And I'm extremely proud of them. And you're going to be hearing from quite a few of them, not all of them. But we're going to present you with all the information that we have for our budgets. And with that, I'm going to start with our Dieter budget 3269. It'll be presented by our rehabilitation administrator and budget guru. And that's our disability adjudication. And we'll start with that if you don't mind.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Brett Martinez, and I serve as the Deputy Administrator for the Rehabilitation Division. I would like to thank you for your time today and just give a brief overview of the division. In short, the Rehabilitation Division assists individuals with disabilities to obtain economic independence, which is accomplished either through assistance with employment or assistance with obtaining Social Security benefits. The first rehab budget on the agenda today is the Bureau of Disability Adjudication, or BDA. So the mission of BDA is to provide quality, timely, and professional disability decisions to individuals in Nevada who claim benefits under the Social Security Disability Program. BDA is 100% funded by the Social Security Administration, or SSA, and is responsible for processing all applications for disability benefits under the Title II Social Security Disability Income and the Title 14 Supplemental Security Income Disability Programs. So on this slide is an overview of the budget. As you can see, BDA is 100% federally funded, and the total request for the biennium is approximately $60 million, and the budget contains 145 FTE.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Do you mind going a little closer to the mic? Just to
sure.
make sure you hear you. Thank you.
Sorry, yeah,
Thank
no
you.
problem. So I'll begin again with slide 5. This is an overview of the budget. As you can see, BDA is 100% federally funded, and the total request for the biennium is approximately $60 million, and the budget contains 145 FTE, 121 which are in the base budget, with additional positions being requested and eliminated through enhancement decision units, which we will be discussing over the next few slides. There are 13 total enhancement decision units in this budget. However, we will not be covering them all in detail, such as those related to travel, computer replacement, cost allocation, and general operating. Enhancement Unit E305 has an approximate cost of $2.4 million for the biennium, again federally funded 100% through SSA. This decision unit requests an additional 15 FTE, which is comprised of 2 disability adjudication supervisors, 10 disability adjudicators, 2 quality control specialists, and 1 rehabilitation technician. So the intent of this request is to respond to increasing workloads not only in Nevada but nationally as well. SSA and BDA have recommended that additional positions be available to be able to respond to the increasing workload and processing times and to address the record high backlog SSA is currently faced with, as can be seen from the table. Enhancement Unit E307 has an approximate cost of $1.5 million for the biennium. This decision unit requests an additional 11 FTE, which is comprised of 5 administrative assistants, 3 rehabilitation technicians, 2 accounting assistants, and 1 IT professional. This request is related to decision unit E305 from the previous slide. In essence, these 11 positions being requested would be the support staff needed to respond to the increasing workload. Staff would support areas such as our call center, our accounting unit, and our IT area. Enhancement Unit E308 has an approximate cost of $350,000 for the biennium. This decision unit requests an additional 2 FTE training officers. These 2 positions will be responsible for conducting new disability adjudicator training as well as new employee training. With an anticipated 145 FTE, 2 positions would be beneficial due to the complex nature and program-specific federal disability policies, laws, and regulations. Currently, we have a disability adjudication supervisor who performs these trainings while also managing their own team of adjudicators, which oftentimes leads to inadequate and incomplete training. Enhancement Unit E600 has an approximate savings of $2.5 million for the biennium. This decision unit eliminates 5 existing FTE, which are 2 licensed psychologists and 3 senior physicians. Nevada has not received hiring authority from SSA to fill these positions in recent years, and we currently utilize contracted medical consultants to fulfill these duties. Enhancement Unit E805 has a 0 net fiscal impact for the biennium and requests reclassification of 4 FTE, which is 2 administrative assistants to be reclassed to accounting assistant 2s and 1 admin assistant 1 to an accounting assistant 1. Currently, the accounting roles in BDA are performed by administrative assistants. The intent of this decision unit is to convert these positions into a job specification that is more consistent with their daily duties.
Thank you so much for this overview. And with that, we'll start with questions. We do have a few. We'll start with Vice Chair Nguyen.
Before we get into this, I'm just wondering if some of these things, I know that initially the request for these 27 new positions and continued funding for that one existing position were at the direction of the Social Security Administration to stay in compliance. Is that my understanding with the Social Security Administration and that federal funding?
This is Drazen Ellis, Administrator of the Rehabilitation Division, for the record. We have gotten the approval for these positions, but it wasn't necessarily a direction from them to have it be there. So they have approved for us to ask for these positions in the session and have provided a letter of support.
And I know that the letter of support and that approval of those positions kind of came with before this budget was submitted for consideration with the previous federal administration. Have you received any updated direction from the current federal Social Security Administration on whether or not these positions will continue to receive that approval moving forward?
This is Drosnellis for the record. So the answer is a little bit more complicated. We are in constant communication with our partners at Social Security Administration and all of our contacts there, and they have not changed their direction as far as this particular ask is concerned. The complexity of the question really comes from when are we able to hire for these positions. So once the legislature approves for us to have these positions in our budget, we are not able to go ahead and hire them right away, nor are we able to hire actually any positions that are vacant in our current budget. We have to receive hiring authority from Social Security Administration to be able to fill these. This hiring authority kind of changes from year to year. And a couple years ago, we had a number of positions that we could fill. We were given essentially as many positions as we would like to fill. Currently, over the last year, we have not received any hiring authority from SSA. So, for example, if somebody and we've had adjudicators who have left the agency for better job opportunities or moved out of state, and we have not been able to approve these, to hire for these positions. Really, our issue is that when the hiring authority happens, we only have a short period of time to hire somebody into those positions. So we need to have these positions in our budget available so that when we do get the hiring authority, we can quickly fill these roles. But all of them are 100% federally funded.
So we don't have an idea of how long that process takes, and what are the current vacancies for the positions that are existing?
Sure, I'll have our Deputy Administrator of Bureau of Disability Education provide a little bit more of a detailed answer on that.
For the record, my name is Jana Vaughn. I'm the Deputy Administrator from the Bureau of Disability Adjudication. Each year we do receive hiring authority of some sort from Social Security Administration. As Drazen said, it just depends on what the budget looks like, how much we will receive, but they have asked us to be ready at any time to fill these positions. Currently, our vacancy is, we are about 91% fully staffed at this time. So we are hoping to, again, have these additional positions ready to go for the time when we do have the hiring authority.
Chair, may I follow up? Yes. So in addition to that, you believe that we need at least these 15 new positions in Decision Unit E305. I guess, how will that address the backlog workload? I know that, and kind of as well in the same topic, I know that we've had to rely on assistance from outside states to address our caseload. So I guess, how will this decrease the caseload? How much of our caseload are we relying on states? I think we are relying on states like California, Arizona, Arkansas, and Virginia to address some of our backloads. So can you kind of address some of those situations and how this might help?
Absolutely. This is Jana Vaughn, for the record. We currently are not receiving any outside state assistance. We started off the federal fiscal year 24 with assistance from 2 different federal components. However, Nevada has outperformed nationwide in a lot of the areas. So they took that assistance and gave it to other states who were more in need. We are doing very well with trying to keep our processing time down, our aged claims down, and we want to be able to continue on that trajectory. So this proposal for the 15 is actually based off of what we are asking for with our 10 adjudicators. The adjudicators are the ones who make those determinations, who analyze the evidence. So the 10 adjudicators are really the utmost need that we have. And so all of these other 15 supporting units are in support of that. And we looked at that. We looked at the ratios of what we would need based off if we were to get approval for those 10 new adjudicators, what support staff would we need to help with that, because with more adjudicators and more claim service, obviously we have more claimant phone calls. We have more mail that needs to happen. We have more, it's all just kind of a downhill effect. And so we want to make sure that we have all the support systems in place to support those 10 adjudicators. So we looked at the ratios of what we have now, what's working. We also did add in a few because we currently have 3 permanent temporary, is that permanent full-time temp workers in one of our units for support staff. And so we would like to actually have the ability to move those into permanent positions.
And thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Next is Senator Titus.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for the question, and thank you for the updates. I think I need some clarification. Back to your slide 9. There you go. So you stated that, and again, just to be clear, you stated that you haven't had authorization to hire for at least a year.
This is Jana Vaughn. We have not had it this federal fiscal year so far. Yes, correct.
But that starts in July 1st, is that correct?
That starts October 1st.
October
for the
1st,
federal
okay,
fiscal
so
year, yes.
it's prior to any administration change, all right, just wanted to make sure that was on the record, that it's already has been that way for a while now. I'm curious about, on that page there, you said that you want to eliminate these positions because you haven't had authorization to fill them, correct? But there's still a need for them. So will you continue the contract positions?
This is Jana Vaughn, for the record. Yes, that's exactly what we do with these positions. These are for our doctors, our medical and psychological consultants, and they are contracted. They are not state employees. So because we have not received the hiring allocation for those for state positions, those have not been filled in several years.
But you still need them because you want to make sure the backlog doesn't increase. So these folks do the evaluations and adjudications for the disabilities.
Correct, but we have contracted, not the state.
Right, so there's never I'm sorry. So there's no intent then to try to bring them onto the state through the state and continue contract work since you're eliminating these positions?
I believe with the way that SSA and the hiring authority comes, when they provide us with hiring authority, it's primarily for the adjudication. So looking realistically at it, we need to just continue them with contractors because we have not been able to fill those.
Right, and it gives you better control then about getting this process done and not waiting
Correct.
for somebody to decide for you. Okay,
Yes.
great. Thank you, Madam Chair, for the question.
Thank you. Assemblymember Monroe Moreno.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I have a few questions, if that's okay. Okay, and the first one, a generalized question. There's been talk on the news, woke up this morning and employees were laid off down south and in Reno for General Services Administration. But there's also talk of downsizing the Social Security office in Southern Nevada. How's that going to affect you all?
This is Jana Vaughn, for the record. So far, there is a lot of reorganization going on at the Social Security Administration. They have condensed from 10 regions now down to 4. This is all very recent, within the past few days. We do not feel it's going to affect anything at our level. We are the Disability Determination Services, and so we are the ones making the determination, the medical determination on these claims. So a lot of the more executive level, they are making a lot of changes and a lot of changes in positions, a lot of layoffs, a lot of reorganization, but we do not feel that will affect us at our level.
Well, thank you. And then, like in Decision Unit E307 and 308, there's a number of positions that has been recommended to be paid with federal Social Security Administration funds, right? So it's, I guess, a two-part question. How did you determine that you needed the 5 additional administrative assistant positions, the accounting assistant positions, the IT professionals, and the 3 rehabilitation tech positions to address and support this unit? And in addition to that, since it is the federal Social Security funds that would pay for those positions, is there any concern that that funding would not be there?
This is Jana Vaughn for the record. There's definitely a concern that we will not receive hiring authority or enough hiring authority for these requests. But we want to make sure that we do have these positions available in case we do, when the time comes. Over COVID, for example, they were willing to give us any hires that we needed. So we are wanting to have these available and ready to go in case we do get that hiring authority. I know there's a lot of uncertainty right now and with the federal budget, and we acknowledge that, but we also know that it hopefully will not be like this in the future. As far as the number of positions that we requested, again, it all goes back to those 10 adjudicators and what we felt like we needed. We looked at our current staffing. So, for example, we have 70 adjudicators right now and 14 rehabilitation technicians. So that's an average of 1 to 5. And so we just continued on that, asking for 10 adjudicators and 2 rehab techs for that support.
And then if the funding doesn't come in at the total amount that we're hoping or really needed to fill all those positions, will you adjust the amount of who you do hire to fit the funding that does come?
This is Jana Vaughn. Yes.
And then on to E308, the 2 new training officers positions. How would they help to address the existing challenges and the inconsistencies with internal training?
This is Jana Vaughn for the record. We currently do not have any training officers in our entire agency. So anytime we receive a group of hires or new adjudicators, we have a disability adjudication supervisor to train them and basically kind of work out of class to do that. This is in addition to their regular duties. So we really want to be able to have someone in place who can provide not only that new adjudicator training, but also there's continuing training. It is a very extensive training for adjudicators. The first 2 years is considered trainees, and then from that they continue to learn different claim types. So it really is a full-time position that we would need. In addition to that, we are requesting another one as well, just for overall agency training to make sure we keep up with all the federal trainings, the state mandated trainings. It really would take a weight off of our current staff now, and especially our disability adjudication supervisors, who are responsible for not only supervising their units and providing the assistance to their units, but also do the training. It really is, they're doing 2 jobs in one, so we really want to take off that burden for them.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Assemblymember Brown May.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. I have a question relative to training, and I just want a little bit of clarification. I understand the need to train and the complexity of the programs that you're trying to administer. I'm curious to know if there's any component for this training position that would include benefits planning for the clients that you're working to serve, right? And what does that look like as you try to deploy the federal programs that folks have assistance to?
This is Jocelyn Ellis for the record, to the Assembly member. The training for the benefits planning would be done more on our vocational rehabilitation side, as they work with individuals with disabilities who are looking to work. The individuals who are applying for Social Security benefits are the ones that are not able to work and are therefore applying for these disability benefits. We do send the communication to all of them, to every one of our claimants, about the existence of VR and what services we offer. And that is also something that we are working on the vocational rehabilitation sides to enhance our ability to provide better benefits planning assistance to Nevada citizens.
Thank you. Members, any other questions on this budget? Senator Stone.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for the presentation. What is the current backlog in claims? Historically, it's been 1,200 claims on the average, but it also said that you're using California, Arizona, Arkansas, and Virginia, but you claim that you don't need those resources anymore. So what is the current backlog, and is it still taking 115 days until you get to that backlog?
This is Jana Vaughn. Historically, our backlog has been much higher than the 1,200. 1,200 is about where we are currently. There have been times where we've been up to 4,000 claimants waiting for a decision, waiting to be assigned to an adjudicator. So we are currently about 1,200. And the 115 days is from the point that we receive it all the way up through the decision. So I'm sure if you saw on the slide, one of the slide number 6, for last fiscal year, the nation's processing time, overall processing time in days was 232 days, where Nevada was 166 days. So we are truly priding ourselves on trying to get that backlog down. Last year, there was a point where we were had a completely we were assigning the same time they came in. We eliminated our backlog, but we want to continue that trajectory. The more claims that come in, obviously it's uncertain how many come in. It just is dependent on the economy, but we want to just be prepared for when that happens.
And if I can just follow up, if you still have a backlog of 1,200, I understand you're doing better than the national average. Why would you stop the assistance from other states when that assistance is given to other states that maybe have more or needs than us? And then once we get a claim to be adjudicated, how long is the time once they finally get into the queue to get processed?
This is Jana Vaughn, for the record. We have not wanted our assistance from other states to stop. The SSA at a federal level has taken it and given it to other states who have needed it more. We would continue to receive any help that we can get to make sure that our Nevadans are taken care of timely. So that was not our decision. That was at a federal level. They give it to the states who are in the most need. So that's why ours has been taken away. We would... If we do get ours, get all of these down and get our backlog eliminated, obviously Nevadans come first, but we would love to be in a position where we could also assist other states if it ever came to that as well, to where we could help our constituents as soon as we receive their claim, get it adjudicated, and keep on track with that.
And
What's the adjudication time once you get in the queue?
Yes. Usually about, I want to say on average, about 70 to 80 days for an adjudicator to make the decision.
This is Strauss Ellis for the record, if I can just add to that. Also, just wanted to add that in 2020, the BDA has processed over 19,000 claims, as you can see on that table over there. And in 2024, we have processed over 29,000. And this is with the same number of staff that we have currently had. So we definitely have improved the productivity of the agency and ensured that the training is improved now. We're just kind of trying to essentially to take that next step, be even more helpful to Nevadans and get to a place where our citizens, our residents in Nevada get their claims processed as soon as possible. And then if that were the case, if we did not have a backlog, the Social Security would send us essentially additional claims for us to help other states. So because they're the ones kind of managing that productivity on a pretty granular basis. We send them the reports on a quarterly basis as far as what's going on in the agency. They have to approve our spending plans every quarter actively in addition to this. So they're really hands-on in terms of managing the agency. So hopefully, yeah.
And thank you so much for all your hard work. We really appreciate all the information, and congratulations. And we'll go next to 3265. Thank you.
Brett Martinez for the record. The Bureau of Vocational Rehabilitation, or BVR, provides vocationally motivated services to eligible individuals with disabilities to assist them in preparing for and obtaining and maintaining employment. BVR's total request for the biennium is approximately $76 million, which 80% is federally funded, 18% state appropriations, and 2% other funds. The budget contains 131 FTE, 122 which are in the base budget, with additional positions being requested through enhancement decision units. There are 14 total enhancement decision units in this budget, and again, we will not be covering them all in detail. So both BVR and Services to the Blind and Visually Impaired, or BSBVI, receive their federal funding from the Rehabilitation Services Administration, or RSA, which is our federal oversight agency. Annually, we receive 3 different grants, as you can see on the slide. The main award received is for General VR Services, also known as the Federal Section 110 grant. This grant represents approximately 80% of the combined revenue authority for both BVR and BSBVI and has a 21.3% state share match requirement. In federal fiscal year 2024, Nevada was awarded with a little over $30 million. We have yet to receive the full allotment for federal fiscal year 25, but we expect it to be at least the same or more. The other 2 are much smaller grants as they have a much more distinct purpose. Supported employment historically is always $300,000. It's split $150,000 for adult and $150,000 for youth. The youth portion of that grant has a 10% state match requirement. And the older individuals who are blind is usually also around $300,000, and it also has a 10% state match requirement. Decision Unit E303 has an approximate biennium cost of $3.2 million, which $777,000 is funded with state appropriations. This decision unit requests 10 new positions consisting of 1 bureau chief, 1 vocational rehabilitation supervisor, 6 vocational rehabilitation counselors, 1 program officer, and 1 rehabilitation technician to address the increasing number of applicants into the program. In the first quarter of state fiscal year 2021, we did receive 428 applications. In this most recent quarter of state fiscal year 2025, we received 1,025 applications, which is a 140% increase. Current projections indicate applications will continue to steadily increase at a rate of roughly 60% over the next biennium. Since 2021, we have also seen a 60% increase in clients with an open case, or meaning the clients actually receiving services. We were at 3,200 clients with an open case at the end of state fiscal year 2021, and we are currently over 5,200. Rehabilitation counselor caseload sizes have also increased over what we consider to be an ideal level of 85. Currently, the caseload average per counselor is at 102 and expected to increase to 120 plus over the next biennium without the additional staff requested in this decision unit. Please note there's a typo on this slide. This is only E331. It's not E325 as well. That's coming up on a later slide. Enhancement Unit E331 has an approximate biennium cost of $2.8 million, which $600,000 is funded with state appropriations. This request funds additional client service expenditure authority for an increase in demand and cost of services. BVR has seen a tremendous increase in its non-PREETS client services expenditures since 2021, when they were $3.4 million. At the December 2024 IFC, BVR was approved for an additional $2.5 million in authority, bringing the total state fiscal year 2025 authority for non-PREETS client services to over $8 million, which is more than double that of what it was in state fiscal year 2021. BVR has requested and been approved through IFC in each of the last 4 state fiscal years, enhancing our client services authority. As heard with the previous decision unit and projections continuing to show growth, it's reasonable to assume expenditures to continue to increase as well. Enhancement Unit E226 also has an approximate biennium cost of $2.8 million, which again, $600,000 is funded with state appropriations. This request funds additional PREETS, or pre-employment transition services, client services expenditure authority, for an increase in the demand and cost of services. PREETS consist of 5 specific services designed to help students with disabilities identify their career interests and enhance their awareness of the world of work. Per the terms of the federal Section 110 grant, a state must reserve and expend at least 15% of its federal allotment on delivering PREETS. In state fiscal year 2021, BVR spent $1.2 million on PREETS services. And at the December 2024 IFC, BVR was approved for $3.9 million in PREETS authority, which is over a 200% increase. Pre-ETS expenditures also continue to trend upward for the same reasons heard in the previous decision units. Enhancement Unit E325 has an approximate biennium cost of $2.9 million, which $620,000 is funded with Career Enhancement Program funds, or CEP funds, through Dieter Employment Security Division. This request funds additional client service expenditure authority for an increase in the demand of services for the same reasons we just heard. ESD has agreed to transfer $400,000 of CEP funds per year to BVR to collaborate on establishing a client payment card program, which will be seen in E551 on the next slide. CEP funds are allowable state share match for the VR Federal Section 110 grant. Of the $800,000 total being transferred, approximately $180,000 of that will be needed for E551, which leaves the $620,000 of state matchable funds for this E325 decision unit. That $620,000 is able to generate $2.3 million of federal Section 110 grant funds. Enhancement Unit E551 has an approximate biennium cost of $850,000, which $180,000 is funded with the CEP funds through Dieter ESD. This request funds implementation of a new client payment card program. So the introduction of a payment card program to Dieter will enable consumers to directly purchase pre-approved goods and services from vendors either in person or online independently and confidentially. This will streamline the delivery of funds to consumers, reducing delays in employment services and allowing consumers to acquire important budgeting skills. The intent of this new system is basically to make things easier for our clients. Currently, we have a lengthy process, involves sometimes issuing paper authorizations, paper checks. Client has to come and pick it up, spend time doing that, take it to the vendor, get their goods, or whatever it may be to make the purchase. With this new system, funds will be able to be loaded on these cards like instantaneously. They'll get the funding on their card within minutes, and then they could go to the store of their choice to get whatever it is that they've been authorized to purchase. And then before we end there, we'd also like to mention there is a budget amendment that has been submitted to the Governor's Finance Office for this budget account. This amendment is expected to reduce the amount of general fund appropriations being requested by approximately $350,000 in the first year and $180,000 in the second year.
Thank you so much, and thank you for that summary. We do have questions. We'll start with the Majority Leader Hadigi.
Thank you so much, Chair. And I have questions on Decision Unit E303. It's your slide 13, the 10 new positions. I know the agency is expecting an increase in eligible individuals, and I know if these decisions aren't made timely, if there's delays in the intake interview process, it can cause impact to the vocational rehabilitation counselor's ability to make a quality eligibility determination. So how often does the agency have to request extensions for this?
Thank you, Assemblymember Michelle Merrill, Deputy Administrator of the Program for the Record. Essentially, if you go back to 2021, we had to make an eligibility extension about 17% of the time. Last year in 24, we're up to 25% of the time we're being forced to do an eligibility extension because we weren't able to get the assessment material in time to meet the 60-day requirement.
Follow-up, Madam Chair? Okay, and so you're asking for the extension if you don't meet those 60-day requirements. So if you are asking for an extension, then how long is that overall time process? We know it's longer than 60 days, but do you know on average how long it is from when someone fills out an application?
Michelle Merrill, for the record, the best way to answer that question is we do the eligibility extension in 30-day increments, so that it might be that you got the report you were waiting for in 2 weeks, so you didn't need that whole time. So you may not be as far over as you had feared, but we can go in 30-day increments to try to not postpone it any longer than necessary.
Can I have a couple? So on average, would you say it's just about 90 days, or do you guys think you're hitting 120, sometimes even more?
Michelle Mayer, for the record, sadly, I think we are hitting more of the 120 and more, because I am seeing in the reporting that I look at monthly that we're having to do multiple extension requests.
Okay. And then what kind of metrics did the agency use to determine that 10 staff was the appropriate number?
Michelle Mayer, for the record, I think that it comes down to we're looking at the increase in the flow of applications, because everything starts with the applications. We're looking at the volume of applications, and we're looking at what an ideal caseload number is. Speaking as a counselor myself in the field for many years, because of the complexity of the work, I always found, and I think it's an industry standard, that if you have more than 75, 80 cases, you can't remember a name to a face. And for the importance of that relationship as the counselor and client, you need to have that ability. So we try to keep it around there. And when we see the numbers creeping up, it's just math. And you look at how many you're over, and you determine how many staff you need to meet that gap, and how many supervisors, how many technicians to support them. And we came up with this formula.
Okay, and then just my last question, Madam Chair. Okay, so you're saying 70 to 80 cases is ideal, and you're looking for 10 new positions. I know there's been an increase in the number of caseloads. So if you could address what caused this increase, because I think our notes say it's about 63%, and then if you're telling me 70 to 80 cases per counselor, you expect there to continue to be an increase then. So can you talk about what's caused the increase and what you think is going to keep causing the future increase?
Thank you, Assemblymember Michelle Merrill, for the record. I think it's a several-fold answer, but I think one of the biggest impacts has been we created a new website. And our application used to be a paper application that was lengthy and somewhat complicated. And we went to an online application that we made much easier. And I just got the statistics for February. We had over 7,000 hits to our website. We are going gangbusters, and it is very easy to apply to our program. And we have a very robust social media campaign. We have a very robust outreach program to employers in the state of Nevada statewide. And I just think that we've been doing this for enough years now that the snowball has its own momentum, and we're really getting a lot of traction. And that's the good news. The good news is more Nevadans with the needs that we serve are finding us. The bad news is that we have been static with the number of positions, and our caseloads are just growing.
Thank you. Senator Dondero Loop.
Thank you very, very much. I appreciate that information. So my first question is I'll try to get over here so I can see you. How has the separation of the pre-ETS expenses from the client services expenses in that special use category assisted the agency's compliance with the grant spending requirements?
This is Jocelyn Ellis for the record to the senators. It has definitely greatly assisted us. One of the findings that 2 years ago, the agency had undergone the legislative audit, as well as we have undergone the monitoring by the Rehabilitation Services Administration, so our federal partner as well. And one of the findings that they had was in ways in which we were spending pre-employment transition services. They were all spent from one category, which was Category 9 for our client services, and it wasn't easy for us to run a report and provide them in a clear manner the differences in the spending. This way, as we have two different categories, it's very easy for us to see how much of the pre-employment transition funds we have spent, where we are on that, and make sure that we are meeting that 15% requirement. So it helped us at a minimum to ensure that we close out those audit findings on both sides, and then also later on to manage that aspect of the agency.
Okay, may I go on, Chair? Thank you. So will the new payment card allow for clients to purchase resources from any vendor in the state, or only those who opt in with that new payment card?
This is Josh Nellis for the record. Thank you, Senator. That's a great question. So we really feel that this new payment card program will really revolutionize the way in which we provide services to our clients across the workforce system. It will allow the clients to be able to purchase goods at any vendor that accepts credit cards. So that's definitely one aspect that will help us. We will not be restricted to only working with a limited number of vendors who, for example, if we have to buy a specialized book because somebody is going to a college and there's only one online bookstore that purchases it currently, we would have to go to that vendor and ask them to to register with the controller's office, go through this process of a couple of weeks for us to just buy one item, which is sometimes not easy to do, and we're not able to do that. So with this system, we would be able to overcome some of those challenges and just be able to provide services more quickly to clients. The other aspect is really the confidentiality. Currently, when we provide one of our clients a purchase authorization, the vendor knows, or that employer, like where the client came from, what possible challenges they have, that they are a person with disability. With this card, they would just have a dealer logo, and they would be used across the workforce system. So it would kind of remove some of those issues.
Thank you very much. And I think you may have answered part of my next question, because I was sort of wondering how they determined the use for the career enhancement program, for the new payment card, and in the vocational rehabilitation budget account would it comply with the eligible uses in accordance with the NRS. So I think you answered part of that, but could you make sure that we're clear?
Absolutely. So it is to my best. This is Josh Nellis for the record. So let me start with saying that Administrator of Employment Security Division, Christine Nelson, would be much better suited to ensure that she completely and accurately answers that question. But in our conversations and in dealer's analysis, this request would comply with the NRSs as far as the allowability of the use of the SEP funds.
Thank you. And one last question in this new world of credit cards. Should there be transaction fees for the use of the client payment card? Would this reduce the funds available for the clients to purchase resources, or how is that going to be handled?
This is Josh Nellis for the record. So the client will not see any type of transaction fees on their end. So if we load $100 for them to purchase uniforms for a job, they would only be able to spend. They'll be able to spend that entire $100. There won't be any fees for that. The agency, there will be fees for the agency in terms of processing that, but we also currently have costs in the way in which we process the current transactions. So we don't think that this expense will be an increase or that it will minimize the client service dollars that we have available for expenditure.
Thank you very much. I think this is a great idea, so thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Assemblymember Brown May.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. I just have one caseload question back to the pre-employment transition services. It looks here in our background material that you are anticipating 3,360 pre-ETS individual people served in FY26, and then 3,696 in FY27. I'm curious to know, where did you get the number to base caseload off of, right? What is the metric that's utilized? If we know that we have about 16,000 individualized education plan youth in our school system, right? Do you feel like that's sufficient caseload building?
This is Josh Nellis for the record. So I would say that our goal is, ultimate goal is definitely to be able to, as an agency, to be able to serve all of the students with disabilities that are in our school system. So all the students who are on IEP and 504 plans, and possibly the ones that maybe are not identified through those plans but could benefit from our services. Currently, in order for us to identify those numbers, we were utilizing our available budgetary funds, as well as the resources that we have in terms of our staff. So that is currently are kind of more of a short-term goal to be able to serve those, but ultimately our goal is really to get to the entire 16,000 and also be able to serve students more efficiently, so that way we need less funds to be able to serve more students.
Thank you. And then I just have one follow-up. So each one of those individual numbers is a unique case, not duplicative like year over year. So FY 26 to 27. Is that correct?
This is Jonathan Ellis for the record. The number of students that we have served each year, each year is its individual student. However, as we look at from one year to the next, there could be some duplications that some students they've maybe received services when they were freshmen or possibly in 8th grade, so we'll continue providing some different types of services. An example would be a student attending a summer camp and possibly being part of our PACE Lab program or part of the Summer Youth Internship program that we put on. So different years they may be receiving different services, or sometimes multiple services. But those are all individual students in one year. There might be some duplications between the years.
Thank you. Members, any other questions here? Thank you so much. And with that, we will move on to 3254.
Thank you. This is Brett Martinez for the record. The Bureau of Services to the Blind and Visually Impaired, or BSBVI, provides a full range of services to people who are blind, deafblind, and or severely visually impaired to assist them in preparing for and achieving employment and self-sufficiency. Additionally, under the Randolph-Shepard Act, the Bureau serves as the state licensing agent for the Blind Business Enterprise of Nevada program statewide. BSBVI's total request for the biennium is approximately $10 million, which 82% is federal funds and 18% is state appropriations. The budget contains 21 FTE, 18 of which are in the base budget, with additional positions being requested through enhancement decision units. There are 9 total enhancement units in this budget. And again, we will not be going over all of them in detail. Enhancement Unit E301 has an approximate biennium cost of $550,000, which $150,000 is funded with state appropriations. This decision unit requests 3 new positions consisting of 1 rehabilitation manager, 1 vocational rehabilitation counselor, and 1 rehabilitation technician to address the increasing number of applicants to the program. This request shares the same justification as heard in Budget Account 3265 E303 and could be considered a companion decision unit, so to speak, to that one. The increasing number of applications, increasing number of clients with an open case, and increasing rehabilitation counselor caseload sizes are what is driving this decision unit. Enhancement Unit E324 has an approximate biennium cost of $710,000, which $152,000 is funded with state appropriations. This request funds additional client services expenditure authority for an increase in demand and cost of services. Again, this also shares similar justification as to E331 and 3265. BSBVI has also seen a large increase in its client services expenditures since 2021, where they were $375,000. At the December 2024 IFC, BSBVI was approved for an additional $250,000 in authority, bringing the total state fiscal year 2025 authority for client services to $902,000, more than double of what it was in state fiscal year 2021. As heard with the previous decision units and projections continuing to show growth, it is reasonable to assume expenditures to continue to increase as well. And we would also like to mention with this one, there's also a budget amendment that has been submitted to GFO. It's expected to reduce the general fund requested by approximately $67,000 in the first year and $71,000 in the second year. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go back to Assemblymember Brown-May.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions in this budget, if you don't mind. So first, can we talk about what's the impact to the if we don't meet the 60-day time frame for completing eligibility for this federal performance indicator?
Thank you for the question, Assemblymember Michelle Merrill, Deputy Administrator of the Program, for the record. The consequence to not completing an eligibility determination on time is it's considered an exception. It reflects poorly on our performance from the federal perspective, and more importantly is it's a disservice to the people we serve. They're not getting what they came here for, which is help getting a job.
Thank you.
This is Josh Nelson for the record. Just if you don't mind, just to add to that, also like individuals who are possibly looking to get quicker into work, or who are maybe more struggling more financially and are looking for a job. If it takes us longer to process these folks will be affected, as they won't be able to get to employment more quickly, as Michelle has mentioned.
Thank you. Follow-up, Chair. Can you talk then, how long does it currently take for a client to reach competitive integrated employment, like on average, right? And I know that there are extenuating cases. Some people go very long, some people are quick. On average, what is your typical caseload?
This is Michelle Merrill for the record. I would say the average, it's going to depend so much, as you say, on the complexity of the disability. The more profound the disability, the more complicated the disability, the longer we're going to be working with them to try to provide the services to help them bridge that gap. You know, it could be a 4-year degree, or it could be 6 weeks of truck driving school. So it really depends. Let's say 2 years, I would say is the average.
This is Rosnelas for the record. Sorry, I was just going through my numbers, see if we can find the exact number. So the average length of cases is 645 days currently.
So would you say that one more time?
The average length of our cases is 645 days.
Okay. Thank you for having the number. That's very helpful. 645 days. Okay. So adding positions, can you talk a little bit about what are some of the challenges to providing services that you all are facing? And then what are the benefits if we add these 3 positions in?
The challenge is, Michelle Merrill for the record, the challenge has always been staffing. There's many other agencies that would like to have our well-trained staff to do the same thing, such as the VA. They provide a voc rehab program, and we spend so much time in training with our staff and going into the weeds, because it takes at least a year that they like to show them other opportunities. But that said, we work very hard on the morale of our staff and on making our agency be someplace that you can't beat working for. So I think that we've been able to defy that odd, and we have had good retention. Our vacancy rate is very low right now. I think that if we're able to fill these positions, I think we are able to better meet the need of the applicants that are coming to us. I think we will reduce that wait time toward the 60 days of eligibility determination and get people into the services that they came here for. Get them started in their school programs, get them started in their training programs, get them out there interviewing and getting jobs. That's our whole reason for being.
And this is Josh Nelson for the record. If I could just add to that, definitely when it comes to the work that we do, there's a lot of folks in Nevada who would need our services. There's currently 220,000 working age individuals with disabilities in Nevada. And people with disabilities make up nation's largest minority group, and the only group that any one of us can become a member of at any time, as we like to say. So in the previous year, prior to COVID, our growth as far as the number of applications has usually been in the single digits. Some years we might have even seen a decrease. So we have definitely seen a sustained increase in number of applications over the last 4 years. From 2021, the increase has been about 140% in number of new applications. In addition to some of the things that Michelle Merrill had mentioned, the other impact to the number of applications is through our pre-employment transition services program. As students, once they exit that secondary education and they need assistance in getting into employment, would now come directly to our agency. So a lot of these, for example, last year we served over 2,000 students. So a large number of these students then go on and become the clients of our program. So now we have more of different pipeline of the applicants to the program versus just folks applying from the outside. So these positions would definitely help us ensure that we meet that need in the future as well. And also we're utilizing the entire federal grant that was given to us last, as Mr. Martinez had mentioned, in the last year, our budget, our grant was about $30 million. Previous year, we had to revert a few million of that. I don't have that number right in front of me, but we can get it in a second. 3 years ago, we reverted $10 million of our grant. So definitely want to be able to utilize the entire grant that the federal government gives us. And with this budget, we are very close to that point.
Thank you. I have one more, Chair. Thank you so much. So one more caseload question, specific to folks who are blind or visually impaired, deaf or hard of hearing that you're serving. How many clients does the Bureau of Services for Blind and Visually Impaired estimate you're going to serve each year? What's your estimate for the 25-27 biennium, specific to that population?
Thank you for that question. I don't think that we were prepared enough to answer that. I don't know why, but we'll make sure that we get you that information after this meeting.
Thank you. Members, any other questions? Thank you. And with that, we will move on to 3253.
It's Brett Martinez for the record. The Blind Business Enterprise in Nevada program, or BEN, provides opportunities for individuals who are blind or visually impaired in priority of right locations in public buildings statewide for food and beverage services, vending machines, gifts, and/or sundries. Qualified individuals are referred to the program through the BSBVI and receive individualized training and mentoring such as business management, personnel administration, bookkeeping, food service fundamentals, sanitation, marketing, public relations, inventory control, and related topics. Once a trainee completes the training, they are eligible to compete for available vending and cafeteria sites. BEN's total request for the biennium is approximately $13.4 million, and this budget is 100% self-funded. The budget contains 8 FTE, 7 which are in the base budget, with one additional position being requested through an enhancement decision unit. Enhancement Unit E300 has a net fiscal impact of $0 for the biennium. This request is for one new FTE, which is a Maintenance Repair Specialist 1. As the program continues to grow and expand with new sites and new operators, the need for a Maintenance Repair Specialist is growing. The BEN program is responsible for maintaining and repairing all equipment located in each of the sites. Our current method to achieve this is through contracts with service companies, and by adding our own maintenance person, we can minimize the number of outside contracts we rely on and complete these tasks in-house.
Thank you. And with
Then
that,
there's,
oh,
sorry, there's one more. E551 has a total biennium cost of $255,000. This request is for a new online platform to enhance the efficiency of the program. This platform will allow staff the ability to post available sites, accept and review applications, collect and prepare profit and loss reports, generate invoices, complete site visits and inspections, complete reviews, manage inventory, and more. And there will also be a benefit to the operators who will be able to search for new sites, submit applications, submit reports, receive invoicing, and create and manage work orders. Thank you.
Sorry about that. Thank you. And now we will go to questions. Speaker Yeager.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the presentation. I have a few questions on this particular budget account. And the first one, if you could just discuss some of the current challenges that you have in managing the repair and maintenance demands at the Business Enterprise Program sites in Southern Nevada, please.
Sure. This is Drazen Ellis for the record to the Assembly member. The current challenges that we have is really has to do with the response time to the sites when the equipment breaks down. So the Business Enterprise Program, Nevada manages or helps oversee management of business enterprise sites which are located on public property. So, for example, the cafes at DMVs or the snack bars at DMVs, the cafe that we have at the Hoover Dam, the gift stores that we have at the Hoover Dam, the vending machines throughout the state, and such. So a lot of the food service, a lot of the equipment that's in these locations is food service equipment. So they may have walk-in refrigerators, freezers, just different refrigerators, cooking type items as well. So what we'll be able to do with this position, what this position will assist us in doing is instead right now we rely on calling vendors to respond to our needs. So if something for example, a hot dog roller breaks down, we would then call a vendor to come out and fix it. And sometimes that response time definitely is not the same day. It depends really on how busy they are. For example, in summer, if there's a lot of issues with AC units, so our AC unit at the Hoover Dam will kind of break down sometimes, and the vendors will be. Sometimes the response time will be delayed. With this particular position, will help improve that. Our staff member will be able to more quickly respond to the need, possibly be able to repair it if it's easy repair. If it's not, then they'll be able to call the right repair company and let them know what type of possibly tools or parts they need to bring in order to repair units. So we feel that we'll be able to provide better customer service and also potentially reduce the cost to the agency, so that reduction would somewhat pay for this position.
Thank you. And Chair, if I could ask a follow-up, I think that makes sense. I guess my question there is, how often now do you have issues that require you to actually have these sites closed or not available to the public? Does that happen on a regular basis?
This is Josh Nellis for the record. It doesn't happen often. We usually have these issues when we would have to close down a site if there's a problem at the Hoover Dam locations, usually with AC. So we've had to do that. Sometimes it happens a couple of times a year. Sometimes it could be where we don't have to shut it down that year. There's usually problems there all the time, but we don't have to shut down operations. But the impact, really, what it could be is impact to a particular part of that business. So, for example, if it's a hot dog roller that breaks down, then they won't be able to sell hot dogs. Or if it's a refrigeration unit, then they may not be able to sell some of those food items.
Thank you. And Chair, if I could ask a couple questions on the B-Pro program. Thank you. So could you discuss the anticipated benefits and efficiencies of the B-Pro platform on the daily operations of the Business Enterprise Program, and what challenges you expect to be alleviated as a result of the implementation of that platform?
Sure. This is Josh Nellis for the record, to the Assembly member. The Business Enterprise Program is currently the only program in the Rehabilitation Division, and I believe in DETA, that does not have its own case management system. So all of our information regarding our clients is really saved on Word documents and Excel spreadsheets. Some of the services that our vendors would need would be requests for repair. Currently, the way that they submit those requests is by calling our business enterprise officers, who essentially oversee these locations. With this new case management system, the operators will be able to submit their request online. That way, if that person is not in the office, if they're somewhere else, somebody else from our team can more quickly respond to that. They will be able to also submit a lot of their financial information. Currently, as we oversee these locations, these business owners who used to be clients of the Bureau of Services to the Blind and Visually Impaired, and are now clients of Business Enterprise Program. They have to submit a lot of the financial information about the business, the P&L, profit and loss statements, as well as other kind of financial information that they'll be able to, instead of mailing these items or emailing them, will be able to upload them all on one site. They'll be able to track where they are on the repairs, and communicate in other ways with our agency. Also, we will be able to do a much better job in saving information regarding the program, and just be able to more efficiently manage it. So.
Thank you. That makes a lot of sense. And Chair, if I could ask one last question on that particular budget item, E550. what do you anticipate the ongoing annual costs will be for that platform after we get it up and running?
This is Drazen Ellis for the record. So the annual cost, I believe, is going to be $32,000, the annual maintenance cost, after the initial implementation of $225,000.
Thank you. Members, any other questions here? Well, thank you. And with that, we will move on to 4770.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee.
Do you mind going to, I think it's the mic, not you, just a little closer to the mic. Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Zach Hoefling, ZACHARYHOEFLING, Department's Chief Financial Officer for the Financial Management Unit. This morning, we're going to present the next budget on our slides, Budget 4770. It is our Employment Security Division, housed in Budget 902. Over the next biennium, this budget will budget equates to about $460 million. 42% of which is federally funded. General fund appropriation for this budget is less than 1%. Another 57% in this biennium goes to program fees, balance forwards, various grants, and interest, and some very small remaining bit of ARPA funding in the first year of the budget. We are also going to go over the enhancement units for this budget. Not all of them, but some of the ones we particularly are proud of and want to explain in further detail. First enhancement unit will be, I'm sorry. Okay. Employment Security Division. Forgive me. Okay. First enhancement unit is going to be E310, converting 34 intermittent positions into permanent status of staff for Employee NV career hubs. That funding is supported by federal grants, and if E310 is approved, would still leave 13 intermittent positions in the budget account. All intermittent PCNs in 4770 have been authorized for a significant period and serve as employee NV staff in all of the expanded 46 statewide employee NV hubs, and are required to serve citizens in those 46 hubs. 3 of those positions, 2 of which will be housed in Fernley, 1 in Elko, will be new positions at the request of that enhancement unit. That's 27. Next enhancement unit is going to be E325. And E325 will transfer $272,000 and $346,000 in subsequent years from the workforce development to vocational rehab to enhance their client services. as part of their new card payment system as described earlier in their budgets. Matched with E325 is going to be Enhancement Unit E551, companion to the decision unit as previously mentioned, with rehabilitation. Obtaining and implementing this payment card system with client services will enhance the needs of the customers in the state of Nevada, because what we currently use is outdated and time-consuming. This electronic solution will bring efficiency and effectiveness to the client services program, be responsive to the needs of our clients, along with bring validity and reliability to spending of these program resources through tracking and reporting that will be available to Dieter in the client payment card system. Enhancement Unit E551 transfers roughly $180,000 over the next biennium from workforce development to Voc Rehab to implement this new program for clients.
Thank you so much. That was a very helpful summary. We appreciate it. And we do have some questions, so we will start with Assemblymember Monroe Moreno.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And my questions are going to be in E310, the conversion of those temporary positions to permanent positions. And it looks like you're looking to make 31 of those positions permanent. Could you tell us what the matrix or the workload statistics were utilized by the department to determine that this is needed to convert all 31 of these positions to permanent status?
Madam Chair, through you to the Assemblywoman, Chris Nelson.
May go direct.
Okay, thank you. Chris Nelson, Employment Security Division Administrator for the record. So Enhancement Unit 310 in Budget Account 4770, you're absolutely correct. We're requesting to convert 31 intermittent PCNs positions that have been authorized for well over a decade. And those positions are ESD staff who serve in the Employ and V hubs. And then we're also asking for 3 new FTE to support the expansion of the Employ and V hubs. This expansion is due to the program implementation of both a state veterans program in the hubs. Currently, we serve veterans through our JVSG, which is our Jobs for Veterans Grant, state grant, which is a federal grant that we receive. But that grant has some eligibility limitations, wherein veterans have to show a significant barrier to employment to be served by that grant. So we're upstanding a new state veterans grant program that those new positions and those intermittent positions will support in those hubs to serve all veterans. Then the methodologies that we used to ask for the reclassification from intermittent to permanent has to do with the longevity of those positions and the expansion of the previously known job connects, which we had in 2020, approximately 11 in the state, to the 46 employee and V hubs that we now have statewide. And so just to secure permanency for those staff members who have been serving in those capacities in those hubs, we're making this request in this enhancement unit.
Follow-up? Yes. Thank you. So looking at the backup documentation that are our notes, all of these positions are recommended to be permanent at a step 1, but some of them are currently at different steps and funded at those different steps. Are the current employees in those current positions that are holding those positions going to remain? And are they aware that there's going to be a difference from the step that they're on? Some seem to be at various steps, a 3, a 5. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Chris Nelson for the record. We are working with our governor's finance office on making a technical adjustment to bring in those intermittent to the permanent PCN at the levels that those current incumbents are at.
That's good to hear, because I know folks would not want to take a pay cut just to take a permanent position. So that's good to hear. So then my next question would be on the Fernley Hub. Can you tell us what the benefit has been with the presence of having the Fernley Hub, with the workforce there, the needs in the community, and how the addition of the 2 new permanent workforce services representative positions would continue to address the needs for those services?
Chris Nelson for the record. So I don't know if everybody is aware, but Fernley is booming. I was out 2 weeks ago visiting, it was about approximately 2 weeks, I can't remember, my days are running together now, but visiting Victory Logistics project out in Fernley. And it is a large-scale, multi-decade project for basically an industrial hub in the Fernley area. And so the enhancement unit to support the Fernley Employee and V Hub not only is in response to our antiquated Job Connect that was in Fernley, and we have now relocated that to a position in the community to serve the citizens where they need to be served, but also in preparation for the expansion of the services that are going to be needed for workforce and training to support the industries that are coming into that area. And so this enhancement unit would assist in those resources to provide to those citizens in that community.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you.
Thank you. Next is Senator Titus.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And yes, to say it's booming is an understatement, and it's somewhat painful. So thank you for that, since I represent the Fernley District. And so thank you for being out there. And I was just curious, you're already there, are you not?
Chris Nelson for the record. Yes, we are.
And so these 2 new positions are to continue that then?
Chris Nelson for the record. It's for the new location that's a larger location, and in anticipation for bringing on new workforce partners, which include the other title programs, the other federal programs, such as WEO Title II, which is adult education, additional Department of Welfare and Supportive Services staff, all of the workforce partners that we have in our Employee and V hubs that make them, for lack of a better word, mini one-stops.
And I guess I think, follow up if I might. So you're also going to go out to Elko, or are you looking at any other rural expansion?
Chris Nelson for the record. We're already in Elko, and we're looking to move our location. So very similar in Fernley expansion, expanding to a more relevant location to serve the communities, but also expanding to a larger facility to house those additional partners.
Great, thank you, because expansion can only happen if we have the employees to fill these new positions, these new industries that are coming in. At some point, could you get us some data, if you don't already have it, if I might, to know the number of potential needs, employment needs might be out in these areas that you're anticipating?
Chris Nelson for the record, absolutely. And I believe our Research and Analysis Bureau and Chief Economist David Schmidt, who's in the audience, we do have a dashboard which we've displayed to other committees during previous presentations that actually drill down to workforce, unemployment data, those sorts of things by district, which would I'm happy to provide as a follow-up and would be helpful to this committee.
I'm sure that would be, if that's okay with the chair, maybe to our committee secretaries then, so we could all get that. So thank you very much for that, and thanks for the great job you're doing.
Yes, thank you. That'd be great for the whole committee. And Speaker Yeager.
Thank you so much, Chair. And I don't know if you are the right folks to ask this question, but I think you are. So, and it's a little bit speculative, but we've talked a little bit this morning about all the federal workers across the state, some of whom have been fired already, and it's not going to shock me or I think anybody else in this room if a lot more of those are coming. And so my question is, with respect to this particular division, workforce development, Do you have any thoughts on whether you currently have adequate capacity to help these individuals try to find new employment, or has that been baked into the calculation at all? And again, I know it's speculative, but it's also happening, so that's why I'm asking the question.
For the record, Chris Sewell, Director of Dieter. Dave Schmidt also has some numbers that we've presented. We'll get those numbers on the number of federal employees per county, and what is the highest per county, and all the way down to the lowest county. We'll provide those numbers to this committee. In addition, we've also done some outreach. Our website is being updated for the federal workers that are displaced right now. I think we've all seen some articles in some newspapers and online forums that some are just being laid off and they don't know if they can apply for unemployment, and we're answering those questions. The bottom line is for those federal employees that are out there that aren't sure, apply. Because if there's a way we can get you into the system, we will get you into the system. So that way you're not left homeless or holding a bag that you can't carry. We're there to help for that, but we do have numbers on the number of federal employees that are by county in the state.
Thank you, Chair. And if I could ask a follow-up, you sort of touched on a question I was going to ask later because I had that same question. I didn't know if displaced federal employees were able to apply for state unemployment insurance. So my request would be when you update that website, could you let us know that information as well, because we're going to get incoming, whether it's us or our constituent services, about what the way forward is, and I'd like to be able to have really good information to give constituents who are reaching out.
For the record, Chris Sewell, we will definitely get that information to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, any other questions on 4770? Great, thank you. With that, we will move on to 4771.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Zach Hofling for the record. 4771 houses our Employment Security Special Fund, which is a special revenue fund to cover expenditures for federal funds being requested but not yet received, cover costs to administer employment security laws that may not be charged against federal grants, and pay for tech enhancements to programs. Revenue sources for this fund are interest-bearing and forfeitures collected from employers for non-payment of unemployment taxes. All money is continuously available in the SD. Administrator to the administrator, and do not lapse at any time. 4771 again has quite a few enhancement units, and we will not go through all of them, but we'll focus on a few. 4771's budget request for the biennium is roughly $95 million. We're going to start in Enhancement Unit E500. This enhancement unit is aligning budget revenues with transfer of UI modernization contract for also in Decision Unit E900. Funding $16 million in 27 removes anticipated ARPA revenue for that transfer. E599, Enhancement Unit 599, uses special fund dollars to continue that modernization project contracts after the ARPA funding has ended. Roughly $16 million over the biennium. Enhancement Unit E730 continues some maintenance projects for agency-owned buildings. Just over $1 million in funding from the reserve category. And Enhancement Unit E900, another transfer from the Fast Enterprises contract to Dieter's IT, kind of housekeeping to pay for the instead of paying it from the IT's budget, it will be coming from the ESD special fund.
Thank you. We appreciate that great summary, and we will start with Senator Dondero Loop.
Thank you very much from down here in the timeout corner. Can you confirm the inclusive all the decision units in this budget account, contract expenses, and the UI system modernization project should total 11.3 million in fiscal year 26, 4.1 million in fiscal year 27? Is the agency working with the governor's finance office to submit a budget amendment to reflect the reduced costs compared to the budget as submitted?
Thank you for the question, Josh Marhefka from Dieter. Yes, we are working behind the scenes right now to get these budget amendments prepared and make sure that things are aligned. We've also been working with our LCB analyst. So at the moment, everyone's kind of on the same page, and we're going to have to do a couple minor adjustments in this budget account. So those will be one of a handful, but nothing major.
Okay, thank you. So also, did you apply for any of the U.S. Department of Labor UI modernization grants during the 23-25 biennium as a potential funding source to fund the remaining costs for the system?
Josh Marhefka for the record. No, we did not, but we do have some additional CARES Act monies that we had started to be given those carve-outs from 2020. Those are going to sunset June 30th of this year. We'll have a short liquidation period. So what we're working to do is to get as many of those funds obligated towards the UI program, and whatever else we find come June that are not obligated, we're making the decision to put those funds additionally towards the contract. But we have not applied for anything new specifically for modernization. No.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. I think that's it.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chris Nelson for the record. In additional response to the senator's question with regards to discretionary UI funding, so we do have the UI integrity grant. We didn't apply for it this state fiscal year, but we have remaining funds on that unemployment insurance integrity grant. That grant we have used to the project that was approved in that grant was used to support the ID.me kiosks in the rural areas to support those citizens that just need that additional support in their local area to perform the identity verification. And so we are using the remaining funds from that grant. We have a budget modification into our federal agency to use those remaining funds on additional UI system modernization expenses, which include the ID.me system in the NUI system. So I just wanted to add that.
Did I understand you to say you put kiosks in the rural areas?
Chris Nelson for the record. Yes, that's correct. We put ID.me verification kiosks in the employee offices, which include those 46 in the state, targeting our rural areas where they need them the most.
How were those? When I say how were those used, I mean, were they widely received? Did people use them? Were they put to good use? I don't know exactly how to say that, but I'm curious as to how many people actually used the kiosk and were they a good thing to do?
Chris Nelson for the record. So those just were deployed within the last 4 months. I can get an exact date for you. So we are still measuring the use on those ID.me kiosks, and I'm happy to follow up with that.
Thank you. I was just curious when you said that. There are a lot of people that love that stuff, and then there are other people that shy away from it, and so I was just curious. So thank you very much for that information.
Thank you. Next is Vice Chair Nguyen.
Thank you. I just have some follow-up questions around this UI modernization project. And and you may have this information, or I may ask you to get some of this information. I know initially when this was a contract that was a 10-year, about $75 million modernization project. Is that my correct understanding of me doing the math on this?
Josh Hevka, for the record, the total 10-year contract, $72 million.
72 million. Sorry about that. I rounded up quite a bit. So that 72 million, when I'm looking at kind of this budget and when I'm looking at stuff, about 33 million of that, of the 54 million in ARPA funds that were allocated have been expended. I guess I'm just, and then I'm learning that we haven't applied for continuing U.S. Department of Labor modernization grants, and you had indicated something about utilization of CARES money and some additional money. Is that going to make up that difference? I mean, that's a pretty significant difference, and that's still quite a bit of money in ARPA funds that's still left to be expended. I'm just wondering how we're going to make sure that we spend those ARPA funds as well as have the additional money to finish out that contract.
Josh Marhevka, for the record. So we can definitely assure you we're on time, on budget. Those funds that have been allocated by this legislature for this project, they will be fully utilized. Some other funds that we were given, like we mentioned, the CARES Act, which is PUA, PEUC. There were some other programs to help, 1099 workers and this kind of thing. We're going to put as much of that as will be available that we don't utilize come to June. And then our plan from day one for our ongoing costs, which is between $4 and $5 million a year to keep the system running as we get out of implementation, is to offset that with penalties and interest money out of this account, which those funds are engineered to be used to support the UI program when administrative grant funding does not cover what we can do. So our plan from day one was to start utilizing this set of money that was intended to provide the financial support that the program needs.
And in addition to being on track with the financials, which I appreciate that explanation, is the project progressing, and is it at that same predicted cost of 72 million? Or
Yeah.
have any of those costs increased since the start of this project? Ooh, we have a phone a friend coming in. Tap in. It's like a relay.
Phone a friend, or I guess director's prerogative. For the record, Chris Sewell, Director of the Department of Employment, Training, and Rehabilitation. We are on budget, on time, and the rollout for Phase 2 is actually going to be this summer. Our rollout for Phase 1, which was the tax side, was about a year ago, and the rollout went absolutely wonderful. We only had about 13 defects during the Phase 1 rollout for a new system, and that's pretty darn good. We anticipate the rollout for the second phase of the system, which is the benefits side, which is a little more complex. And we are looking very, very good with that. I've always told this committee I'm going to be very transparent with you. And when I say summer, I know my team right now is probably going to really be mad at me, but oh well. We're going to say July-ish. And I've offered this committee, we will have a demo available before we do go live for the members of this committee or any member of the legislature to see what the new system is going to look like. And so that way you have an understanding so that your constituents, if they do call you, you will be able to say, I've seen it and this is how it works. So hopefully that answers your question.
More than answer, best answer of the day. So thank you.
Yes, thank you for that very, very important information. And with that, we will go to Majority Leader Hadegui.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. And I have questions on Decision Unit E125. I think it's on your slide number 30. So I was reading in our notes and in your PowerPoint, it's transferring special fund dollars from budget account 4771 to the unemployment insurance budget account 4772. Looks like it's a total reduction of $6.5 million over the biennium. And so my question just is, can you give us an explanation as to why transfers of reserved penalty and interest revenues are being used to support an ongoing program expenditures rather than reducing expenses, so that we can align our administrative costs with what the actual projected federal grant funding is?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Josh Marhevka. So as we are providing a better level of support through our unemployment program, and you guys we're in the death throes of coming out of pandemic, and we never want to be in a position again where we cannot provide support to our clients and our constituents statewide. So what we have done with the amount of federal allocation that we've had is we've also taken into consideration, how much more do we need to really provide a very efficient unemployment program to Nevadans. So what we did is we took what I guess we'll call the shortfall in the admin grant, which fluctuates from year to year. And a lot of that depends on what's happening federally and what was our activity for the prior federal fiscal year. And so we kind of reverse engineered back into what activities could we do to support overall that shortfall and to plug that in to have it come out of our penalties and interest account. Now, this is, if this budget is approved, we'll be one of 37 states that actually use this funding to support the unemployment program. Historically, it has not been that way. And so we would like to get into a mode that we are going to use these funds. These aren't like one-shot appropriation kind of things. We want to really get into the budgetary aspect of using penalties and interest to support our unemployment program long-term over the future bienniums.
Okay, thank you. So that kind of answers my second question. My second question was going to be, do you expect to use this fund as a one-time, like a one-shot for the biennium? So I'm seeing you're expecting this to be an ongoing expense then for this account.
Josh Marhevka for the record. Yes, absolutely. And clearly every biennium we're going to evaluate what the need is, what the base UI grant is, and to see what we're going to need to take out of this penalties and interest account. But I mean, it's Department of Labor literally engineered this set of money to offset shortfalls that we just can't allocate at a national level with our base grant. So we want to use these funds that are there to support and provide the service that we need. And they are there available for us, as you guys can see.
Okay.
Thank you. Assemblymember Brown May.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to ask a couple of questions about the Decision Unit E318, the intermittent positions for the UI budget account. It looks as though 4 of the 19 positions are currently vacant, right? So have you notified incumbents that would be impacted relative to the intermittent positions that are recommended to be eliminated?
Chris Nelson for the record. Thank you for the question. So recruitments for intermittent positions, we run with the state HR department, and incumbents that are employed in those positions know that they're in intermittent positions upon hire. With that being said, historically, the unemployment insurance program has boosted up its workforce via intermittent positions and boosted down, dropped down just depending on the economy. That's kind of how the cyclical process has worked over the past decade that I've been with the department. It's like we have to boost up our workforce and get all these people on board when the economy's bad, and then drop the workforce when the economy's good. And so we want to get out of that cycle. It's not a good business model because the programs that these staff support and work within are very complex. They're not programs where we can just hire people off the street and have them hit the ground running. It takes 6 months to a year to train these employees to actually conduct this work. So that being said, the 19 intermittent positions that we're asking for in Enhancement Decision Unit 318 are specific to supporting the work of the UI modernization project. And the incumbents that are in those positions now know that they're in intermittent positions, but we're also working behind the scenes to get them into permanent positions as they become available, which happens very regularly. So getting those for the vacancies that you mentioned, getting those fully staffed if they're authorized in this budget through that authorization period to have them working on the UI mod, but also moving those as we attrition out of the implementation of the project into regular UI day-to-day work into permanent positions. So, in a roundabout way.
Thank you. Follow-up, Chair? Yes. So if those positions are not filled, if we don't retain the intermittent positions, what are the challenges that your department will face?
Chris Nelson for the record. Well, this enhancement decision unit is very specific to our UI modernization project. So the challenges would be taking away other positions' time to work on the issues that come into the implementation once that implementation goes live in the July-ish date, and bringing those other staff that are serving the citizens. So it's a resource problem.
Thank you. And then just one last question. Thank you, Chair. How long do you feel like these intermittent positions would be necessary, right? So if we're looking at a state fiscal year, right, are they only needed for FY26, or do you anticipate that it'll continue through the next fiscal year?
Chris Nelson for the record. So we anticipate needing them only for the first fiscal year of the biennium, so state fiscal year 26, and we're working with the governor's finance office and the LCB on making that technical adjustment.
Thank you. Speaker Yeager.
Thank you, Chair. I have a question on E730 building maintenance. And just as a sort of lead into the question, back in June of 2023, the Interim Finance Committee allocated $6 million in ARPA funds to restore penalties and interest funds, and these funds were approved to fund building maintenance and improvements. So in looking at the documentation we have, it looks like there are still $3.3 million remaining in that ARPA authority to support building maintenance and improvements. So my question was, if you're able to give us an update on the progress in expending that $6 million, and then the follow-up to that was, could any of that remaining authority be used in lieu of the recommended reserve reductions that are in Decision Unit E730?
Thank you for the question. Josh Marhefka for the record. So the $6 million that we're working on getting expended to get us true with Department of Labor standard for how you use penalties and interest. We have a couple big projects going on. One of them is an HVAC project that's close to a $2 million project by the time that it's done at our St. Louis building, and I'm talking like that's full HVAC. They had to do it in 2 phases, so we originally requested for the remaining part of phase 2, which is almost $1 million, to be entered into FY26, and that's another one of those adjustments that we're working with GFO to have that authority built back in so that we can, finish out the project, because we're not anticipating we're going to get invoice or billing until that project is finalized, possibly into July, August, wherever, how long it's going to take. So there's that part of the money. To your second part of the question is, and just show some separation, the $500,000 that we ask for each year is for other buildings that were kind of outside of this main project, and some projects that we're doing in our main administrative building here in Carson City. So if you go back in prior bienniums, we've typically had a budget there, and this is just for like shingles come off a roof, we can go do it. We have our own maintenance crew. Like we mentioned before, we're kind of our own little city, so we're very self-sufficient. We can do water heaters, we can do light bulbs, we can fix doors, this kind of thing. So the 2 pots of money, as you could look at them as related to building maintenance, is correct, but what we'd really like to do is get this $6 million almost as expended as possible in this fiscal year, and that remaining amount for the HVAC going into year 1 of next biennium. But then we'll still have this little pool of money so that we can go, if we need to get a tool for something or whatever else that it is. Technically, yes, we could offset those funds, and we would just, change the coding when it came to an invoice or a purchase order or whatever.
Thank you. Any other questions here, members? Okay, you all did such a good job, and you're doing such a good job now. I think we're going to get through all of this. So we will go next to 4772.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Zach Hofling for the record.
I'll just have to say, I don't want to jinx us either, but go ahead.
Budget account 4772 is for our unemployment insurance inside of ESD's budget. Unemployment insurance administers Nevada's unemployment insurance tax and benefits program as prescribed in NRS 612. The mission of our UI program, providing temporary financial assistance to eligible workers who have lost their jobs through no fault of their own, improve the well-being of Nevada's workforce and families, and promote equitable access to unemployment insurance benefits for stability and to administer an efficient and effective tax system. The U.S. Department of Labor provides funding for ESD to administer UI program in the state. UI taxes fund the UI trust fund, which pays out of benefits to eligible claimants. Again, we will be going over our enhancement units rapidly, not all of them though, of course. 4772 over the biennium is requesting roughly $85 million, housing 199 total FTE. Start with enhancement unit E125, which is changing the funding source for our grant to special fund in our UI program that funds 13 existing positions. Funding shifts $6.5 million over the biennium. No net new cost, just a reallocation of funds. E125 also houses our expense authority for the ID.me fraud protection. And these enhancements support the modernization and fraud prevention of the project. Corresponding to E125 is category E231, also an expense authority for the identity verification contract to reduce the UI fraud. Funding requested in this enhancement unit is $1.2 million over the biennium. Enhancement unit 318, funding for intermittent FTEs for this UI modernization project, extending through the 26-27 biennium to ensure the success over that project. Various other enhancement units will reduce the budget in things like phone lines, extending and achieving an ongoing savings in the UI budget. In $2.1 million over the biennium. And I do believe that covers our enhancement units.
Okay, thank you so much. We will start with Senator Dondero Loop.
Thank you very much. Would you be able to give us an update on the ARPA integrity grant funds that are being used to improve the ID verification and fraud prevention?
Chris Nelson for the record. So, as mentioned, that integrity grant, we have a budget modification in with the U.S. Department of Labor to utilize the remaining allocation of that grant to help fund the UI program in general. But the projects that are approved in that grant fund the ID.me, and that's two-part. So one part funds identity proofing through the virtual system that's currently in our UINV system, will also be in our NUI system, and that's the first line of defense in the identity fraud. And then the second part of it is the department's annual renewal for the ID.me kiosks that are currently in those employee and V hubs that serve, specifically targeted in those rural areas. And so that grant funds ID.me, identification, verification in those two-pronged approaches.
Do you have any angst about getting this done, since the Department of Labor is a federal department and may in fact have some changes?
Chris Nelson for the record. No angst this week, but
next week.
I can tell you that we work very closely. We have bi-monthly meetings with our federal project and regional areas. We also are members of the NASWA group, which we meet with regularly as a state consortium group to discuss these matters on both what's happening nationally and what's happening in our states, but also strategies to mitigate issues if they arise.
Thank you. And can any of the remaining ARPA Integrity Grant Fund authority be utilized to fund that annual renewal costs for the ID platform in 2026?
Chris Nelson for the record, that is the modification request that we currently have in with the federal government. We have not received the approval formally from them on that, but we bring it up at our bi-monthly meeting of when that modification. It's a technical adjustment in the federal project, so I don't foresee any issues with it.
Thank you. And can I keep going, Madam Chair? How does the agency plan to address the $4.6 million shortfall in the most recent revenue projections as compared to the amounts that were submitted in the executive budget?
Josh Marhefka for the record. So, again, as I had mentioned earlier, the admin grant does fluctuate, and we've seen it go up and down in the recent years. So one of the main areas that we're looking at is offsetting that with penalties and interest. We do have a subaward that is not finalized yet for some work that we do, some interface work that we send employment data over to Department of Welfare. So we don't know what that number is going to be. We're waiting for that to be finalized, but that will be an additional help. And so we're looking at the other funding sources that we do have available, penalties and interest being one of the big ones, and additionally some of this subaward that could be upwards towards $1 million each fiscal year.
So if those reductions to the budgeted expenses were necessary to align with the agency's most recent revenue projections, what impact would that have on the department's ability to administer the unemployment insurance program?
Josh Marhefka for the record. So as things are, have we been historically funded outside of the couple real gush years that we had with extra federal funding for a pandemic? We're basically down to a skeleton crew, and it leaves us with almost an inability to support the program with the federal allocation that we get. So it could potentially, really diminish what we were able to do. Like call center would be a big area that could be potentially hit. And our ability to really get in and to collect these fraud dollars that we're working on. And so things of that nature that would really diminish what we can do in the unemployment program, which then all of us would feel the effect of that.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Senator Titus.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. I can't let the term fraud dollars go unaddressed. So I'm curious about that amount. And are you working through federal agencies, FBI, and how is that going?
Chris Nelson for the record. I just saw Deputy Director Jordan come up, so I'll defer to him.
For the record, Troy Jordan, Deputy Director of DETR. We are actively working on that every day. We have worked with federal agencies, the Attorney General's office, federal law enforcement agencies, not limited to the FBI, local law enforcement, Nevada Division of Investigation. We are everybody's going after those fraud dollars. I believe, and the director can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the pandemic fraud alone was in the hundreds of millions. I didn't have that number prepared today, but we are actively going after that every day. Some of it is going to get collected, some of it probably won't, and I've testified to that before. It's a Herculean effort when these were algorithmic fraud from computer mills out of the country. We are working on it every day, and but approving the budget, as Deputy Director Marhevka said, gives us a better shot at getting those dollars back. The ID.me project is also another thing because it stops the identity fraud up front. And although, much like a chess match, the fraudsters add new technology like AI, I know I've been asked about that before, we continue to try to add and continue to add other safeguards and other measures to stop them.
So thank you for that, and perhaps we could get an update on what those numbers look like now, existing versus collectibles, where we are with that. And do you think you have currently enough funds and adequate employees to continue to address the fraud issue?
I believe so, yes. With this budget, yes. I would also expect an uptick of attempted fraud when we go live. It's one of the reasons we don't give an absolute date, because just to give you the example I've given before, when they launched the PUA system during the pandemic, I was actually in office with the rest of us looking at it, and because we had made such a big deal about this is the go live date, it's going on at 9 a.m., we turned the system on at 6 a.m. to make sure it would boot up, and 3,500 algorithmic fraud claims had already been filed within the first 3 minutes. We are taking an active role in doing that, and we believe we've got the lessons learned, the strategy, and the staff to do that, but it's also why we do things a lot differently in 2024 and 2025 than we did in 2020 and 2019.
Right. Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for that answers. Looking forward to information.
Thank you. And that made me have a question, because just looking at our materials, I know that the number of cases have gone significantly lower. So can you talk about that?
The ID.me program pretty much, and I don't want to sound, especially needing to launch a new system, I don't want to be overconfident. ID.me has been an invaluable tool, and just for the public's knowledge, ID.me is not only used by DETR for unemployment, it is used by the Social Security Administration and the IRS as an identity tool to prevent fraud at the federal level. It has been an invaluable tool in knocking down and pretty much eliminating identity fraud. The main parts of fraud that we see, that this will never end, but it also is how much can we collect and how much resource can we put into collecting it, is people that flat lie about their income. They'll accept the benefit while they're working. They won't report the income. They'll lie on their application or whatever it may be. And I'll remind you in this state that any statement that's knowingly made that increases the benefit amount with an untrue statement or fraudulent or misrepresentation is fraud under state law currently. It's one of the most broad statutes in the country. But that type of fraud is also, that's our second largest type of fraud after identity fraud. And that is where we try to hunt down and collect many times, because that was as widespread in the pandemic as it was with the identity theft. By the end, after ID.me came in, it was our #1 fraud, but that is also where we collect those dollars.
Well, thank you. I want to thank you and your team for all that you're doing for reducing this. And with that, I don't see any more questions on this budget item. We will go to 3272.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Zach Hofling for the record. Inside of budget account 3272 is our administrative budget, which is 100% funded but through cost allocations. 3272 does house our financial management unit, human resources, public information office, operations management, and our internal audits office. Budget account 3272 enhancement units are going to include E327, which is a new personnel technician 3, previously approved outside of the budget cycle, and E328, 2 new positions, an account technician 2 and a management analyst 2, inside of the FM unit in which I manage. And as you can see with what has already been provided, the workload that the department has taken on, these 3 positions are essentially needed to assist in all that is being brought in or asked for, and that is our budget account for 3272. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We have a question from Assemblymember Monroe Moreno.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And my question is about the 2 new positions in E328. The first one, the account technician position. How did the agency determine that the one account technician position would be appropriate to meet the needs of the financial management unit?
Thank you, Zach Hofling, for the record. The accounting technician 2 currently is being set to assist with our vocational rehab unit. Currently, our workload and employees are pretty well evenly spaced between all of our budgets. However, ESD and VR do manage the biggest workloads, and this one is needed to help out within that department and just assist that unit.
Follow-up? Thank you. On that second position, the management analyst position, what are the current challenges in managing the department's cost allocations, and how would this additional position address those challenges that you're having?
Thank you, Zach Hofling, for the record. The management analyst position is currently going to assist the cost allocations unit by administering the many various allocations that are distributed throughout our department, whether it's grants and multiple funding sources. This is going to lighten the workload of the one position currently doing it. Hopefully this will make the FM unit just more efficient and get everything done a little bit faster and more time, consume a little less time, and allow us to focus on our bigger needs.
And how difficult do you think it will be to find the personnel to fill those 2 positions?
Zach Hofling, for the record. I have been in my position since July of last year, and in that amount of time, we have had a little bit of turnover. But in that amount of time, I have also gotten to know the staff that I work with and alongside, and they are incredible. That staff, I think, is willing to learn new tasks, and I think my first venture would be to try to promote from within, but I am always looking, because as we do have turnover, we do bring in a lot of staff outside, but training does slow things down a little bit.
Thank you. I appreciate the fact that you want to look to move people up that have been there and doing the work for a long time. So I appreciate that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Members, any other questions here? Okay, looks like we'll be going to our last one, 3274.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Zach Hofling, for the record. Currently, in budget account 3274, our information technology department is organized into 4 primary functional units: an information systems applications unit, customer and operations support services, technical services, and our IT project management office. Budget account 3274 currently has quite an extensive unit of enhancements as well. For the most part, a lot of these are to address some of the others that are transferring money out of this budget and into the corresponding budget to pay bills directly. A couple of reclasses of employees from intermittent to permanent, and a new FTE to manage and implement IT-related projects, along with various contractual authority based on our IT unit and equipment replacement and new equipment related purchases.
Okay, thank you. We have a question from Vice Chair Witten.
Hi there. I'm back on IT questions. I'm suspecting a similar answer, but how did the department within these positions determine the need to convert those 10 intermittent positions to those permanent status? And do those workload statistics support that, those recommendations to go permanent?
Good morning. Carl Stanfield for the record. Excuse me. The pandemic hit in 19 and 20, and it created deficiencies within all of Dieter, and ITD was no exception. The back end of that showed that we just were not capable of scaling up, and the entire department became reactionary instead of proactionary. And these positions, they are meant to work on our technical infrastructure management, our staff IT support throughout Dieter. They're going to cover our security posture as well as our IT PMO division, which provides project management support throughout all of Dieter.
And just kind of following up, I know you had mentioned that some of the positions in previous budgets that were being eliminated due to this. It looks like 3 of those 5 intermittent positions are recommended to be eliminated here come July 1st, are actually filled positions right now, including 1 IT professional position and 2 IT technician positions. What have you done to either try to find new places for those impacted workers? Is this similar? There's turnover, you're able to find spots for them, or what's the status on that?
Carl Stanfield for the record, Assembly Member. We are currently working still to try to find positions for these people, but we do have a low turnover rate now, which we're really kind of proud of. We do have a member on military leave right now in a foreign country, and we are looking at migrating one of those IT pro positions over to fill his spot while he's out right now. The other 2 positions have been notified that we are also looking at moving them into a permanent position, which we have available, and we may end up losing one of them in the long run.
Did I hear that correctly? You said that one of those positions that's sought to be eliminated is currently serving our country overseas?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Carl Stanfield for the record. Yes, ma'am.
I'm hoping that we can find some other placement for that individual.
We will have when he returns.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I'm sure they do as well. I have just a question. Will you still need these permanent positions after the modernization occurs? Like, will these still positions be needed?
Carl Stanfield for the record. Yes, we've looked at our current infrastructure, the way it's set up right now. We are a maintenance shop with a development team, a support team, network team, server team. The modernization is going to help us gain more efficiencies. Our original allocation was 16 positions, and we realize now moving forward we will need to keep these 10 to perform the critical functions that we need to perform, but the remaining 6 will no longer need.
And thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Other questions on this item? Okay, with that, looks like we will be closing this budget hearing. Thank you, everybody, for being here today, being concise, but also giving us all the information we needed. So thank you so much. And with that, we will move to our last item on the agenda, which is public comment. Because of time considerations, persons offering public comment will be limited to not more than 2 minutes. Please state and spell your name for the record. To provide public comment by telephone today, please dial 888-475-4499. When prompted to provide the meeting ID, please enter 836-3258-1391 and press pound when prompted. We will start first with public comment in Carson City. Please don't forget to state and spell your name, and I'll start your 2 minutes after you've done that. Go ahead.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Alan Feldman, Feldman. I'm the Director of Strategic Initiatives at the International Gaming Institute at UNLV, and I very proudly serve as the chair of the Governor's Advisory Committee on Problem Gambling. March is Problem Gambling Awareness Month, so it seemed like the appropriate time to kind of check in with all of you and let you know about how we've been spending the funds that you so generously provided last year for increasing awareness and doing some seminars around the state. I'm going to say later today, it may be there when you get back, you have a written report on all that we've been doing. But in short, we held 3 major meetings, one in Reno, one in Elko, one in Las Vegas. We had people from stakeholder groups across the spectrum. So we had folks in the healthcare industry, in law enforcement, in the legal community, and as well as, of course, people in the treatment community and those with lived experience. And we learned quite a bit from that. It is all detailed in the report, and I'm not going to go into that detail now in respect of time. But let me just simply say that we're doing a lot really well in Nevada. We have a good infrastructure to build upon. It's getting a little bit empty, so we have to talk about workforce development in a very serious way. We're losing counselors. We're losing counselors in the rural areas, and we are very, very short of anyone who speaks Spanish. That said, the number of people who are going for treatment is up 19%. And before we make that sound like a terrible thing, if I had, pom-poms or fireworks, I'd set them off because we want to see more people go to treatment. That's a good thing. We know that they're out there. We know that they are out there and they have problems. Their families have problems. Sometimes their businesses or their communities have problems. It would be great to get more people into the system, but that, of course, also means that the system has to be ready to accept them. And the 2 major things that we have to be focused on are providing access to care in rural communities and providing access to care to non-English speaking patients. The rest of the detail is in here. I will leave you to it. Thank you so, so much for your generosity last year.
Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it. Seeing no one else in Carson City, we will go down to Las Vegas. Seeing no one at the table, AVH, if we can please open the phone lines.
Thank you, Chair. If you would like to provide public comment, please press *9 now to join the queue.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the Hardworking Committee. This is Dora Martinez representing the Nevada Disability Peer Action Coalition. We all do respect Madam Chair and everyone, but ever since Tracy Brown May, Assembly Member, has been a member and Chris Duell took over the office, my email has gotten answered when I emailed the voc rehab and my case has reopened. So I thank Tracy Brown May and Mr. Chris Duell, but it shouldn't have to take me to copy people on the email to get prompt, quick response. And also when I'm trying to advocate for people in Carson, Mr. O'Neill's, I CC him and our email got prompt response. And I heard one of the question if the voc rehab is out there on the ground, bring awareness to the students who can be eligible after age 14. And the big answer that I know here, based on my lived experience, because I'm a disabled mom and active on our Washoe district, school district, a lot of students do not know that voc rehab can provide services to them. And that's why there's a lot of unemployment people in this state who are disabled, especially people who are blind. They have been vendor. Insulas House is a vendor, and it's not sufficient and adequate to train a person who wants to work for the state or nonprofit as a social worker or et cetera. So please, action do speak louder than words, and I encourage you all to hold them accountable for what they are saying now. And I hope I don't get retaliation because I'm speaking out. Thank you so much and happy development of this week. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Next caller.
Chair, there are no additional callers choosing to provide public comment at this time.
Well, thank you so much. And again, I want to thank everyone at Dieter for your very succinct and helpful presentations today, and thank all the members for a great meeting. And with that, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.